Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. With further Rostermania rumours coming out the last 24 hours or so, Dashy's given his thoughts on all the buzzwords that get flown around with regard to team problems, especially this past season. Talking about the pacing issues, the IGL issues that some people throw around are actually often very far off the mark, and usually it's a more complicated facet of factors that actually come into play when a team is having issues. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate loads of new subs yesterday as well. Let's keep it moving. Don Rain music video coming soon. Just absolutely fantastic scenes. Honestly, like, you better walk out to this next teaser for the Paris Legion, not Vegas Legion. My apologies. So, like, let's dive into the Rostermania stuff. Firstly, we know that Doug will be continuing on the Boston Breach Academy. His roster of 4 is far from guaranteed right now. We believe it's going to be Doug, Volant, or Kywin, or whatever he goes by, and then Shawnee +1. That +1 will more than likely be the official substitutes for the Boston Breach. We believe we know who that is now. We'll see in a second. First of all, though, confirmation, or maybe not confirmation per se, but Kroner's kind of retired to a degree from roster leagues. So Jacob Hale and some others, the rotation, have taken up the mantle to a certain degree. This is kind of what Kroner already indicated, but he's kind of taken a step back a bit. So we might not necessarily be the first one confirming things anymore, but well, Jacob Hale reckons from Deserto that Standy and Scrappy will be joining Kleenex and Insight on Toronto's team going into next year. So the question was really for Toronto, did they get Hicksy in the team? Because I thought for quite some time, especially last year, Hicksy was kind of getting ready to be the next Bance in a way. If they did want to move on from Bance at some point, Hicksy could be that guy. The issue is, though, with that team is that you kind of do need some slaying power in the SMG line. Kleenex, I think, was still incredibly impactful this last season, but was rarely going to drop a 1.2, right? Like, he's going to drop a 0.9, 0.95, but have crazy impact on the map. You're going to need an SMG that can deliver some element of slaying, and Bance wasn't always that guy. And okay, yes, they're bringing Scrappy in. Of course, they're going to bring Scrappy in. Like, they don't want to let him go elsewhere because he certainly can be a superstar. I think many believe in this league. Scrappy and Insight. Questions will be raised about Marky B's place if he's not going to be here. How does that affect the potential chemistry of this team? But I do like the Stanley move, right? I think Hicksy's a good player, but you know, Stanley has maybe more upside, right? We know what Stanley can be, and he was back in Cold War when Minnesota brought him in, and he was a fantastic player for their team. Last year, of course, was nowhere near the same player, but yeah, if you can get back to that Cold War form, then I think like people may be underrating Stanley to some degree, at least in terms of his capacity. If Stanley doesn't perform again, then they can bring Hicksy in, right, and give that a go. But I do think it's worth a try getting Stanley and preventing him from going to a team like, you know, Florida or something like that, because I do think that this team has, you know, pretty high potential, to be honest, if this is indeed the roster of 4, and it does create that great kind of storyline with the Minnesota Rokkr, where, of course, like Stanley went one way, and then Cammy and Bance went the other way, so it's kind of created, it's a more organic storyline now, that Battle of the North, than it kind of felt forced for a time at the start of the league, to be honest. The other thing that's going on is the Florida Mutineers, that apparently the transfer of Vikul from Toronto Ultra Academy NA to the Mutineers is now complete. So it will be Vikul plus, you know, of course, well, Skies and Awakening are gone. They kept Major Maniac, it seems. They kept Dave Paddy as well, even though he's going to be on the bench. Now, Havok is going to rejoin, apparently, alongside Brack. So this is the rumor we discussed yesterday. Is there a slim possibility that Crim 6 of this team, or even Clay to this team, could happen? Seems less and less likely now, but Vikul apparently is set in stone. The other names, well, as yet, maybe not signed yet, because often we see players, they'll tweet out the signed thing. So good for Vikul to get his chance, because I think he was one of the players last season that had the most promise in the challenger side. Good to see a couple of new rookies coming in. Scrappy, of course, is like the clear #1 rookie that people are expecting to be a dominant force this season. We'll see if that turns into reality, because there's a lot of hype around Scrappy, right, on that Toronto team, and understandably so. But it's probably been quite a while since there's been a rookie that's come in that's so expected to be the clear #1 rookie of the season. So I suppose we shall see how that plays out. And just to mention this actually from round 11 stats, because I do wonder whether Florida realise that they might need to go down a more search and destroy route, which in fairness might have been what they did when they brought Maniac in this past season, right, in the end of the year, because they maybe wanted to become more of a 2-3-5 team, just because the previous Florida team, they would win a fair few respawns with Skies Awakening and the slaying power they had, but their search and destroy was usually pretty woeful. They lost a lot of game 5s last year, I'm pretty sure, in, well, difficult circumstances for them. I remember specifically it was actually Major 2 when they were up 5-3 on map 5, Desert Siege Search and Destroy, to try and knock out Los Angeles Guerrillas. Got 5-3, come back on to lose 6-5. LAG then go on to win every single game 5 and win the entire tournament. But again, it could have been a very different one if Florida would have won that one. And also for their points as the season progressed, that would have been big points for Florida. They might have made the World Championship. Didn't happen in the end because they lost that crucial game 5. So I guess they're kind of seeing the Major Maniac effect here. Quite a stunning difference, actually, that Maniac had for their Search and Destroy win rate, though, since they brought Maniac in. I mean, yeah, look at this, right? They had a 34% Search and Destroy win rate without Major Maniac last season. When they brought him in, it went up to 64%. So that immediate impact, I guess they want to keep that around going into next season as well. Paris Legion or Vegas Legion, we really don't know what's going on there right now. We would theorize, I suppose, that it would be Temp and TJ Halley. That's what people currently believe is going to be happening. Then you've got to find two more. I would hope that Clayster still gets the spot here, but then you will need effectively like a fast-paced SMG on the roster. So there could be some options out there, but the issue is if you are Vegas Legion, you probably don't want to pay a Seams buyout. You've got the likes of, you know, Havok, of course, is getting snapped up. Standy's getting snapped up. So you're kind of running out of options to some degree. Of course, Gunless is there if they wanted to go for a Temp Gunless AR duo. But in terms of like aggro SMGs, you know, Capsule could be an option, right? There's some players that are potentially out there. So I'm sure Vegas will leave it last minute as they always tend to do. And that's kind of what Crone says. He's not really sure what's going on right now, but he would guess TJ, Clay, and Temp maybe as a team of three. But usually it takes a very long period of time for these guys to actually figure out what's going on. Let's mention Beans real quick because he says yesterday, just the beginning, signing the contract. So we believe he's going to be going to the Boston Breach. This is, of course, rather scary if you're a Methods fan because Beans has been known this past season as one of the most promising AR players, but can also be a flex in the entire Challengers ecosystem. He's going to join Boston on the bench. So, like, the team is definitely making it clear that they're not necessarily convinced that maybe Methods is the long-term plan for this team. Then again, it would Beans be more likely to replace Awakening? That seems possible maybe as well, because if Beans was to join, you know, would the team actually have any IGL at all if it was Beans, you know, Awakening, Nero, and Vivid? Like, that probably doesn't make too much sense in my head. So, still, like, they're showing to both of their AR players if it is Awakening and Methods, like, look, you can't just rest on your laurels here. We are very willing to make a change if necessary, and Beans probably, I think, will get a shot in the starting team at some point or another. Whether it's on Boston, who knows, but he's going to be there as a sub. This also in Boston, they've been doing an awful lot of, you know, baiting around and, you know, the keyword, they drop all the binary stuff. People translate it and find out that it says, don't go to sleep, which is, you know, Crone nicely translates, stay awake, right? So maybe Awakening's joining. Like, you know, it's kind of, I don't know, I don't really mind the baiting by these Twitter accounts for the pro teams, but it's like, when we know your roster, it's like, it's kind of, it feels a bit pointless to do all this, like, kind of keyword stuff. I mean, you know what your team is, so you might as well just announce it and get it over and done with. Let's dive into this then, right? Because the majority of teams in the league changed over the last couple of weeks. Only a few stuck together. OpTic, of course, did in the end, although they were very close indeed to splitting up. Seattle Surge, Los Angeles Thieves, the only ones to mention. Everyone else decided to split up to a certain degree. Now, of course, over the last several months or so, we get shows like The Flank or people in general talking about, like, yeah, what are the problems with these teams? Are there pacing issues? Are there issues with the leadership on the team? And Dashy believes a lot of the times that there's things that people don't really understand, or it's a lot more complicated level of factors. And he was actually saying last night on stream to, you know, to people who comment on this type of stuff, presumably on shows like The Flank, right? Because he's kind of saying that people are looking at the chat, hoping for people to say, like, wow, yeah, facts, like wakes or whatever, you know, all the stuff in the chat. People are just looking to get, you know, as Fung would say, they're looking to get tipped. I really grinds my gears using that terminology, but that's what Formal said, so I'm going to say it and get it out of the way. But, I mean, yeah, this is what effectively Dashy's point here, right? Is that people are effectively just using these buzzwords and making stuff up, like, oh yeah, that team has pacing issues, oh yeah, that team, like the IGL, wasn't really doing the job, or they just need more slang and all this type of stuff, and just making stuff up to make themselves feel good when people in the chat say they're speaking facts, whereas in reality, like Dashy reckons that often that stuff has nothing to do with what's actually going on within the team.
It's like people have, listen, stream, people, you give them the stage, you give them the spotlight, you give them the mic, and it's like, it's an audition, bro, for like, what's the, you know what, let's hear your point of view, and people are like, oh my god, what's something that no one else has said, but like, I could also say, but it's also kind of sounds pretty smart. Yeah, I think they're pacing issue. Yo, Javi, thank you for the prompt sub, or the 500 bits, good looks, bro. Oh my, oh yeah, this is something, yeah, they also have an IGL. IGL, you need an IGL. You need one. That's why they're losing these big games. And the pacing issue. It's not just like one thing, stream. It's not just one thing. I'm like, damn. Like, I swear, people just want to see, like, damn, nah, that's fat. Like, people just want, like, the word. They love seeing the word facts. I swear to God, they love hearing and seeing the word facts in the chat. No, that's facts. Wait, low key. That is low key one of their issues. Bouncing around.
Oh, is TJ Halley in OpTic?
Yeah, he is.
We should add him to the call. Is
Or
he
nah,
live
he's
chat?
He's former OpTic. But he's like he's OGLA though. Like he's kind of like
That's cool.
he was like fraud OpTic, but
Why is Chad laughing at that? Wait.
no, because he's actually not an OpTic. He's actually not an OpTic. But he was.
What happened?
I don't know. I think he got too big. I don't know. He got too cool. Something, I don't know.
I also shared a brief clip there of him roasting TJ Halley. I thought it was pretty funny. They're good boys at the end of the day, but I think Dashy was watch partying the Valorant stuff with Andrea Botez, and yeah, well, he threw in a few shots, which I thought was pretty funny as well. But yeah, what do you guys think about this? Because at the end of the day, for guys like Aches and Parasite and the people on the flank, it makes the scene way more entertaining when people like this give their thoughts on what might be going wrong with rosters. And it's not like they're necessarily wrong all the time. Yes, Dashy might be correct that there are certain buzzwords that go around about, oh, wow, yeah, the pacing's bad on this team, whereas in reality, maybe that doesn't really scratch the surface of what's going on. Of course, if you're looking from outside and commenting on a roster, you never really know exactly what's going on there internally. But I feel like, the comments that people had, for example, on the Los Angeles Thieves were pretty accurate at the start of the season. Yes, people said they should blow it up, which, maybe was premature, and of course, they decided not to in the end. But in fairness, LA Thieves did make a fair few changes. They brought Shane in. They, of course, put Kenny on the sub. That's what really started to catalyze their revival. At the start of the season, I think people would be right to say that, okay, the SMG duo isn't really firing. They're not really on the same page all the time. In Search and Destroy, they're making bad decisions in round 11s. This was a lot of stuff that was said on the flank and I think was actually accurate. Now, of course, it's not going to be the case all the time, and Dashy probably knows from personal experience, having been internal within this OpTic roster, with all the drama that's been going down, that look, at the end of the day, the issues they were having were not necessarily the issues diagnosed on these type of shows. Does that necessarily detract from the quality of the content, though? That's another question entirely, because I think the flank has been very entertaining this past season, and shows like it, of course, but still, I think some people would say that maybe back in the Cold War days when it was more analysis, maybe that was better, maybe it was worse, because nowadays it's kind of more of a hot take show in a sense, which I think can be equally, if not more, entertaining. And in fairness, do you really want to be analysing Vanguard again and again for the entire season? Probably not, right? So it's an interesting one. I don't think Dashy has anything against any of the individuals on the show necessarily, but I think it's kind of more frustrated with how things are often perceived within teams internally, and effectively just using buzzwords and the pacing, IGL problems, this type of stuff, to try and explain problems that they don't really fully understand. But at the end of the day, it makes things more entertaining. And this is the other thing, right? It's I wonder exactly what Dashy would prefer them to talk about, because if they don't say anything, of course they're not going to fully understand the situation. But if commentators on the scene don't say anything, then it's then all of a sudden nobody cares about the scene anymore, right? If no one's giving their opinion, then what that means is that nobody actually cares about the scene. So it's better this than the alternative. But I see Dashy's point, I suppose, at the end of the day. This also to mention, because Parasite, of course, has maybe been one of the people that Dashy's implying and talking about with regard to the flank and some of the takes of this made. I do think a lot of the time Haggy makes very intelligent kind of calls on what he sees within certain teams. But we did see yesterday that he kind of tweeted this out, the I am okay thing. I did bring it up actually in yesterday's video. Now, I believe he deleted everything else, and actually his account right now has gone either private or it doesn't exist or something. So hope everything's okay with Parasite, because we saw his tweets yesterday where he was getting frustrated about not having an opportunity so far in the league, and now he says it's okay, and now the account's gone. So hope everything's okay for Parasite. I'm sure he's having a difficult time trying to obviously get a spot in the league, but at the same time, I feel with a bit of time, there might be more options here, because often the players get locked in and then the coach's staff gets locked in as well. So I still feel there's a chance there for Haggy to get a spot somewhere, so hopefully everything's going okay and he can get a spot somewhere, because I would like to see him involved in the league to some degree. Speaking of Dashy, just thought I'd mention this. This was a LAN only card for Dashy this season. Interesting really to see the kind of record for OpTic, 16-10 on LAN this season. Not exactly spectacular. Then again, often you will find that every team's LAN records tends to be worse than their online one, at least the top teams, just because if you're OpTic or FaZe, you're often winning your early games in the tourney, and therefore you're playing better and better teams as it progresses, right? Whereas online, you play a random selection of teams and therefore theoretically have an easier time. The deeper you go in tournaments, the better teams you play. So it kind of makes sense, the records here, right? But the numbers pretty spectacular, right? I mean, Control especially, 99 in terms of deaths per 10 minutes, kills per 10 minutes, looking really good as well. Control was Dashy's kind of key game mode this year, especially early on in the season. And that's the thing really, when it became ticks for defense rather than kills, I think it maybe affected OpTic a little bit, right? But still a 91 overall on LAN. Not too bad at the end of the day. And just to finish off with this, that came out on Breaking Point last night, if you guys haven't watched it yet, most crack plays ever. These videos have done really well so far. So yeah, definitely I really enjoyed this one last night. And part 3 of most crack track plays ever, even going back to World War II and other games like this. Scumpy with a 3-piece. I mean, yeah, Epsilon versus OpTic. That was a bit of a mismatch, even in the OpTic World War II days, which weren't exactly so strong. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care, and I'll see you next time.